This is the Nexus Special, Episode 12, the Apple iPhone 5 event, on Wednesday, September 12th, 2012. This episode is hosted by Ryan Rampersad and special extraordinary guest, Brian Mitchell. Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
That's good. So, today there was an Apple event, and Matt didn't want to do an Apple show, so instead I have a different guest. I have Brian Mitchell, who I mentioned last week on at the Nexus.
You sure did. I heard that wonderful ending.
Yes. Well, it's true.
Yeah. Hopefully I can fill the shoes that were laid out for me.
I think it'll be pretty easy. So you like Apple products, from what I hear.
Yes.
And there was a lot of new Apple products today.
There sure was. The new iPhone 5, new iPod Touch, new iPod Nano, and EarPods.
EarPods. What a horrible name.
Yeah, I tweeted about it and I misspelled it as earbuds, just out of muscle memory, but I'll learn eventually.
Yeah. Well, so I suppose we should start with the big thing, the iPhone 5.
Yes, which I will be pre-ordering on Friday, so I'm excited about that.
And of course, it's expensive, but everybody knows that. So what changed between the 4S and the 5? What's the big thing?
Well, I think there are two main things, being the 4-inch screen, which would make it taller at 1136 pixels instead of 960, and then the whole thinner and aluminum kind of unibody. I'm not quite sure. They don't call it that, so I guess it's not unibody, but...
It almost is. Instead of having a huge glass platter on both sides, it has smaller glass platters on the back and a huge one in front, but on the back, where there used to be just one sheet of glass, there's also a aluminum plate, I guess, that's just right in the middle.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how they started off with the first generation iPhone having the aluminum back, and then they went to plastic for 2 generations, and then glass for 2 generations, and now they're coming back to aluminum.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? That's a very, it's exactly what they did with the iPod Nano. They pick a design, and the next year they totally deviate from it, and the next year after, they go back to the previous design.
Yeah.
So they experiment and stuff, so that's fine. So what happened with the processor this year? So we know from the iPad that they had an A5X instead of what we expected at that time to be the A6.
Yes, but this year, or with the iPhone 5, they did make an A6, and that the Apple claims will bring you twice as much performance in both CPU and GPU. They said that pages will load 2.1 times faster. You can save images from the iPhoto app 1.7 times faster, and then load music and load Keynote attachments. I think they also said pictures are 40% faster, taking pictures, that is. Also, I read just not too long ago, like half an hour ago, that the A6 is running the ARM Cortex A15 cores, which is the first for any mobile device, I believe. And that would be beating out, who was it? Texas Instruments and, who was it? And I'm not sure who. Oh, and Samsung, yes.
Yeah, well, it's not hard to beat Samsung.
Yeah.
Well, so the TI chip is basically a single generation A15, just one. The eventually Samsung's apparently going to be bringing out a double, like 2 Cortex A15s on a single chip. Well, that's just going to suck power, but I mean, for the most part, processing power in general doesn't really matter that much on mobile. They need to grow over time. You don't need a huge number. So what's the clock speed on this A6? Do we know?
I don't think it's been released. I haven't seen any numbers anywhere.
Yeah, see, they don't tout that because it doesn't matter.
I'm sure we'll find out as soon as the device is released.
Oh yes, definitely. So since we got a new core, or a new processor rather, what's the battery life suspected to be like?
The battery life is supposed to be better. Let me pull up some numbers here. Now, I think it was Phil Schiller who said, he's the senior vice president of marketing, but he said that it's not only more power efficient, but also much faster, of course. Here's battery. It's supposed to get 8 hours of talk time on 3G, and then still have a standby of 225 hours, which is up from 200 on the iPhone 4S. and then 8 hours of internet use on 3G, and up to 8 hours of internet use on LTE, and 10 hours of use on Wi-Fi. And I think 4S had 9 hours of Wi-Fi.
Yeah, that's definitely an improvement. So of course it got thinner, so the battery, it got taller because the whole phone got taller because of the screen getting taller. So it's always interesting to wonder what kind of new battery technology they're integrating into this.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's a larger capacity battery or if they've just reduced the power consumption of the device.
Yeah, I haven't seen any numbers on it. I think I know the iPhone 4 was a 1430 mAh battery.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, so you think it would be increased a little bit, but of course, who knows what they did to make it thinner and of course taller? Who knows? So what other changes did they do to the phone?
They moved the headphone port to the bottom, and the iPhones have always had the headphone port on the top, but the iPod Touches have always had them on the bottom. So this is moving them to the bottom. I'm guessing that I think the home button is on the right side if you're facing it. So is the camera. So I'm guessing they have something underneath the right left-hand side where the headphone port normally is.
Yeah. I wonder. So years ago when this was rumored to happen previously. So every year a rumor comes out saying, "Oh, Apple's going to move where the headphone port is." People a lot back then often said that it would be terrible to have the headphone port on the bottom because how could you put the phone in your pocket? So I imagine you carry your phone in your pocket usually, right?
Yes, I always go bottom down because
imagine that.
I always go bottom down and glass out for some reason.
Well, on your 4S, I mean, it's 4S.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty easy to go glass out since both sides
I
of glass.
have a case, so
okay.
I do glass out, I guess, because I at least used to carry my headphones in my pocket with it, and I put my headphones behind it.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
But now with the iPhone 5, if you have headphones plugged into it, you have to put it facing down, and I'm just hoping I don't sit somehow or something gets pushed on the sleep button and turns it on.
So on my phone, now, of course, I have an Android phone. My headphone jack, oh wow, the headphones are apparently plugged in and talking, cool. So my headphone jack is on the top, just like the previous iPhones were.
Yep.
And the power button is also on the top. So when the headphones are plugged in, hitting the power button is horrible. Now on the iPhone you don't have the trouble because you actually have a real button to push. You have two ways to turn the phone on and off. Or well, at least you have two ways to wake it up.
Yep.
So you have the power button and of course you have the home button. But when I had my iPod Touch previously, I loved that the headphone jack was on the bottom because I always put my phone in screen facing towards me. So that way, if something were to hit me from the outside, the screen wouldn't be taking the damage. So that's how I always did it.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess everyone's different. I don't know why. I guess it doesn't really make sense for how I carry it, but
whatever works.
I don't really have too many scratches on mine, so that's good.
Yeah. So they also changed the charging port this time.
Yes, the lightning connector, as they call it, and they joked right away how the lightning connector goes well with the Thunderbolt port on the new Macs. Although it is only USB 2. On the Apple Store online, I think you could buy the cable or the 30-pin connector to lightning connector adapter said it was USB 2.
So just the adapter, so 30-pin to lightning connector, I believe that's $29, and then the connector that's integrated with a cord, I believe that one's $39. So they are kind of expensive, a little bit more expensive than what I was hoping they would launch those as. But it's not too bad. It's only products going forward. You probably don't have too much of a need for them.
Yeah, like I don't have any devices that plug in with the 30-pin connector. I just have USB cables for charging.
Right.
I have an Apple TV at my house that I use for playing videos out of, and an Airport Express for streaming music, so it's all wireless for me.
Right. So they also changed, or they added a microphone. So where are the current locations of the microphones?
On the iPhone 5, there's now a microphone on the bottom as usual, and since the iPhone 4 on the top as well for noise cancellation.
Mm-hmm.
And now there's an additional one next to the camera, which I'm assuming will be used when you record video. I'm I'm assuming they use all three for phone calls for even better noise cancellation.
Yeah, that seems to make sense.
And the noise cancellation is actually very good. I don't know, a year ago I saw this video comparing iPhone 3GS to iPhone 4 with noise cancellation, and it was a huge difference. It's much more clear in just the voice during phone calls. So an additional microphone must help even more.
So my phone has two, just one on the bottom, one on the top. It doesn't have three. That would be too cool. Well, so I wonder... So one of the questions I have, which we'll get to later, but is if the new iPod Touch has those same three microphones, or if it just has maybe just two, which I assume it will. But moving along with the iPhone, they have a new redesigned camera, but it really isn't redesigned. So what do they change with the camera?
They pretty much just made it thinner. They also have a few new features with the camera app, which is more software, but also depends on, I think, the A6 for some speed. But they can now have a 28 megapixel panorama shot, whereas you hold it up and you just move it across up to 240 degrees in a circle, and it'll take all the images as you move it using the gyroscope and accelerometers and stitch it all together into one 28 megapixel panorama. And that seems like a very cool feature. At least I think so.
And of course it's going to look great on the Retina display on that phone too.
Yes.
And so they also updated the HD, the FaceTime camera, but I'm not sure how they updated that one.
That's updated to a 1.2 megapixel camera, so it does 720p.
Okay.
That's the same with all the new MacBooks
Yep.
and iMacs and the new iPad, I believe. I don't think iPad 2 has HD FaceTime camera.
No, it has old, horrible stuff.
VGA quality.
Yeah. And apparently you can also take pictures while recording video now. That's a nice addition.
I'm assuming it's at the full 8 megapixel resolution.
Right.
So that'll be always nice too.
And so the other big thing here, of course, is LTE. So in the US, we have LTE issues, or wireless provider issues, but elsewhere in the world, it's not so bad. So when the 4S came out, it unified the two versions of the iPhone 4. So there was a CDMA version and a GSM version for AT&T, and then the CDMA version was for everybody else, Verizon and Sprint. And now they're going back to that, away from where the 4S was. 4S had them all unified into one iPhone. So there's three versions now, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, 2 GSM and 1 CDMA. This is all due to limitations with, I think, LTE chips that are available. There's not one that has all of the bands on it from all around the world, which is surprising to me. I'd think someone would have it out because there will need to be world phones in the future.
Definitely. Well, I also think this is a good line, or but it seems like an evolutionary track to where the next iteration of iPhone would go, like, oh, well, now we have a new integrated radio that supports everything again. So I can see them doing that. Yeah,
I bet the iPhone 5S will have a full unified chip for a world phone.
Exactly. So just last week, actually, Amazon released their Kindle Fire tablets, and they touted dual-band Wi-Fi heavily. And of course, this week, Apple does the same thing. So, what happened with the Wi-Fi this week, or today?
Well, with dual-band Wi-Fi, it means that there are two antennas that can both receive and send Wi-Fi signals. So 802.11n, which is the newest, mainly popular format. 802.11ac is still coming on its way. But with two antennas, you can receive and send twice as much data. So this supports up to 150 megabits per second. So it's now you can have faster Wi-Fi on an iPhone than you can with some Ethernet connections.
Right.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, it is. So does this iPhone have two Wi-Fi antennas, so like two spatially separate antennas, or is it just one antenna? I assume it has two, right?
I'm not quite sure. I haven't seen it yet.
Because I'm pretty sure the MacBook Air does. I'm pretty sure the Retina Display Mac does.
The Retina Display Mac, I think, has tri-band Wi-Fi.
Okay, right. I thought the iPad 3 did, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, iPad 3, I can look that up. But yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. But yeah, either way, dual band Wi-Fi on an iPhone, I think, is pretty nice.
Yes, definitely. So you also have a tweet here from someone that essentially says that there was 725 unique inlays to match per iPhone.
Yes, that was actually a screenshot from apple.com/iPhone/design. I've since found it on the site. But yeah, there's a video that Apple released about the hardware design of the new iPhone. And what they do is during the assembly process, here, I can read it here. During the assembly process, each iPhone 5 aluminum housing is photographed by 2 high-powered 29-megapixel cameras. The machine then compares the images with 725 uniquely cut inlays to find a precise match.
So I watched this video too, and I thought that was very astounding.
Yeah, I can see why the iPhones are so expensive. But they also, I don't know of any other company that puts out devices at the quality that Apple does, and this is where it really shows, I think.
Well, I mean, when you think about it this way, they have, they're making the iPhones with these machines, but somebody had to build these machines too. So not only are they making this amazing phone, but they're making all this incredible equipment to make these phones. So that's interesting too.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a win-win with doing this, because if there were parts that weren't quite right, and they also say they measure in microns for widths and gaps and things in the phones. But if you have a part that's just a hair too small or too large, there's a chance that you might have the aluminum frame that needs to fit inside that is a little too small or large. So you might be able to actually save parts over the long run with finding exact fits.
Right. And it's interesting that, of course, they're using high-speed cameras because there's no way humans could even possibly begin to, match pieces up. So that's also an enhanced efficiency.
Yeah, and these are 29-megapixel cameras. You can't even buy a camera except for that one smartphone that has 41-megapixel camera.
Yeah, what is it called? I know it's PureView, but it's a Nokia phone, but it's not real. It's fake. Yeah. Well, I suppose we can go on to the iPod Touch then.
Yes. This also has the new 4-inch screen with the 1136 by 640 resolution. I'm not sure if it has in-plane switching, which helps with color distortion as you move the screen, tilt it left and right. I hope they do, because I think that's a very nice feature. But so it has the new screen, and they have the A5 processor in there. Now this is an upgrade from the A4 in the previous generation iPod Touch, but it's not quite at the level of the A6 in the new iPhone.
And it's also not even the A5X, but that makes sense because the A5X is powering the iPad 3, which has lots more pixels. So the A5 is probably a good place for it to be. And this is probably also the revised A5, like the second A5, because when they made the iPad 3, they also downsized from the 45 nanometer A5 to the 32 nanometer. So it's the power-saving variety.
Yeah, I wonder if they're taking maybe some slightly defective A5X processors and putting them in here, because with the iPad 2, the new version after the iPad 3 came out, they used a different, A5 chip.
I don't think the A5X uses a 32 nanometer process. I'm pretty sure it's still using the 45 nanometer process. It's a physically larger chip too. So
okay,
yeah,
that would make sense. So it has this newer processor. It also has the 5-megapixel camera, so similar to the iPhone 4 and iPad 3, or the new iPad. So it'll take better pictures. And to go with this, it has the iPod Touch loop, so you can have a loop that'll go around your wrist, like on many cameras nowadays. I think they're trying to get slightly more into the camera market with an iPod.
Well, one of the things I think is interesting is years and years ago, when I was shopping around for an iPod because I was too poor to get a smartphone, the iPod that was released that year didn't have a camera. But when everybody cracked it open, of course, that's what people do when you buy a $200 piece of equipment, yes, there was a hole in it just ready to go for a camera, just that there was no camera in the hole. So it only took, what, maybe 5 years for the iPod Touch to get an actually usable camera.
Yeah, it's about time. Was that the third generation iPod? I remember rumors with that.
Yes, I believe it was the third generation, yes.
Okay.
So in the lineup, which I think is particularly interesting, they're keeping the existing fourth generation iPod Touch. So what do you think about that? The reasons as to keeping that older model.
Well, I think because they have the 16 gigabyte for 200 and a 32 gigabyte fourth gen for 250, as well as the 32 fifth gen for 300 and 64 for 400. I think they do that because in the scheme of things, additional memory isn't as expensive as they are charging. So if they sold a 16 gigabyte for 200, they'd probably be losing money on every iPod Touch. So at least that's what I think. So
what do you think this? How does this bode for the rumored iPad Mini? I guess.
I personally don't think they'll do an iPad Mini. I know Steve Jobs mentioned it a year or two ago. He said he didn't think it was necessary or it was going to happen, but they might. There have been rumors about it, so I could be wrong.
Yeah, see, putting that price point where it is, it's a little weird to me to have the iPad Mini be priced around it, because all the rumors point to it being priced in that range between 200 and 300. So that's an interesting thing too.
Yeah, and if there were an iPad Mini, say it was like a 7-inch or something, and it was $300, that's the same price as a new 32 gigabyte iPod Touch.
Exactly.
I think yeah, right now I don't think they will do an iPad Mini. Just it doesn't fit in with their lineup.
And also the rumors are very frequently touting that it won't have a Retina display. But today, Apple finally did my favorite thing of the whole announcement. They got rid of the iPhone 3GS.
Yes, thankfully.
That thing was an abomination.
2009. It's now 3 years old, and they were still selling it.
Yes.
Or giving it away for $1. But I'm happy. I think very soon we will stop seeing new applications being not Retina supportive.
Right.
Which drives me crazy.
And then I can finally stop seeing that weird chrome shiny bezel all over everywhere. I hate that thing.
Yeah, it's about time.
Very angry about that phone. Well, let's see. What else does the iPod Touch have? I think that pretty much covers it. You know, it has a new connector, of course. It has the same FaceTime HD camera.
Yep.
The iPod Touch Loop, as you mentioned, is not very exciting, but it's a little wristband.
Yeah, I wonder if there will be additional third-party
Uses
adapters or things that use it.
Well, why do you think they thought it would be a good idea to include that?
Well, they probably got complaints, or there may have been a higher number of dropped or broken iPhones brought into the Apple Store with the addition of a camera. I feel that with people using it as a camera, they probably drop it more often, and they're probably saving themselves some money with service. I don't know, maybe.
Well, it's also interesting to me that they somehow managed to do all of the new stuff in it, and of course, but also managed to find... they made it thinner, too, of course, just like everything, but they somehow managed to find enough room to not only add the little loop, circle, but also to make it a button so that it pops up when you push it. So not only does it come up, but it has to go down a little bit so that you can push it. So there's a ton of room in there, and that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, they dedicated a lot of space for it.
Yeah, definitely.
I follow a guy on Twitter who tweeted this when it came out. He said, "The loop is good for those little shits that drop their iPods."
Yes, definitely. It also would make sense if... It reminds me very much of the Wii's control, like you hold your iPod Touch that same kind of way, and then you'd have the lanyard along your wrist, just like the Wiimote.
Yeah,
I saw comparisons to that all day.
Yeah, I saw some of those too. Also, with the iPod Touch is colored cases built in. They dye the aluminum. I think that looks really nice.
So, do we know if it's the colors through the metal, or is it just a painted on kind of thing? I assume it's through the metal.
I think it's through the metal. Yeah,
Good.
They have, and I think it's also cool how they had in their manufacturing process, at least about the iPhone 5, about how they polished this metal. So I think it'll be very cool how there's the brushed aluminum and then there's the very shiny and polished parts. I think that looks looks nice on contrasting each other.
Yeah, it definitely does. The iPhone 4 and 4S have the steel band around the glass platters, but the new iPhone 5 has this black, or at least the black variation does. It has this black steel band instead, so it actually has its own color, which looks really, really nice.
Yeah, I really like the look of the black iPhone 5. I'm definitely gonna pre-order that one. I think it looks more like a kind of a behind the scenes rugged Apple device, and I kind of like that. It reminds me of the Mac Pro somehow. Just
yeah, it kind of does. Yeah,
a beastly machine. Whereas I think the white iPhone 5 is more of the front of the line, not so heavy user device. That's what I associate at least.
When I see white iPhones, and last year I never saw any, but this year I see so many.
Yeah, me too.
And whenever I see them, I always think to myself how much smaller they look than their black counterparts, because the screen makes the bezel look. I mean, the white bezel, I guess, makes the screen feel as if it's not enveloping the whole device. I mean, obviously we know the screen doesn't, but it just makes it feel so constrained and like in-framed. So
yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. Well, they also Apple also revealed new iPod Nanos today.
Yes, they brought back the widescreen and a not tiny iPod Shuffle-like device. I'm happy about that. I never really liked the old iPod or the 6th generation iPod Nanos, but people might be complaining because they can no longer be turned into a watch.
How sad.
Yeah, I never saw anyone with that. I've only seen pictures on the internet.
Yeah.
But it now has a 2-inch screen, I think.
Wow, that's a surprisingly high pixel density.
Yeah, it's a resolution of 240 by 432 with a pixel density of 202 pixels per inch. I believe it was a 2-inch screen, 2.5-inch screen.
Oh, it's bigger than that even.
Yeah, and it does multi-touch. They demoed pinch to zoom on some pictures, and it looks like a mini iPod Touch kind of, but with square icons and no internet connectivity.
Right. Well, so one of the things, I only looked at it briefly, but one of the things I thought was kind of strange when you look at it is that it has these absurd round app buttons. So instead of being nice, like rounded squares, it's this absurd round shape.
Yeah, I was watching the Engadget live blog stream with pictures, and it looked very nice until they showed you the screen. I just said, "Ew." It looks nice. It looks nice, demoing features on Apple's site, but once you see it on the device, it just doesn't match because the screen has square edges and it's a square device. I think circles would go better on a more round device.
So even the home button has that same issue, I think. Let's see, do I have proof of this or am I just making it up?
Yeah,
nope, I'm not making it up. So even the home button, is always round, as we are okay with, but there's a little imprint of a rounded rectangle on the iPhone and on the iPod Touches, but on these iPod Nanos, it's a circle, just like the icons.
I think what that is because on the iPhones, it's a square like an app icon, and I think you go back home to select your different app you want to load. And so I feel like with the iPod Nano making a circular home button, it's kind of forcing them to keep with circular app icons. And I feel like people will probably hate these round icons, and Apple could change it, but it wouldn't ever match with the home button. So
yeah, they'll do something to it eventually. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to on last week's show, I had predicted that they would wait yet another year. They would upgrade the internals, but wait another year to change the screen size of the iPod Touch. But maybe this is all in just preparation for a different kind, yet another smaller variation of an iPod Touch. Maybe not with a huge screen and stuff, but something like that.
Yeah, well, I think The iPod Nano, I bet over time Apple might put more apps into it. But it's already very full featured. It has an FM radio. It does the Nike Plus with the pedometer, and you can watch videos and photos, podcasts, and music. And it also has Bluetooth for connecting to speakers for streaming music to, I guess, headphones or speakers.
Or your car, right? I think that was the demo they insisted on in the video. Of course, this isn't running iOS. It's just running iPod Nano OS or something.
Or a very modified version of iOS similar to the Apple TV.
So have you seen their, slogan for the new Nano? Completely re-nanoed.
I think that's they're admitting they redesigned it. I don't know. I saw some of the 6th generation iPod Nanos out, but I personally never really liked them. They seemed too small.
Yeah. They seemed too shuffle-like.
Yeah, and I personally do have a 4th generation iPod Shuffle. They're only $50.
Is that the one with the screen or without? I mean,
that's the one with that's without the screen with just the buttons.
Oh yeah, I think they all just have buttons. I mean, but that's the one with the buttons and not the stick one that's all voice controlled or something?
Yep.
Oh man, that voice controlled one was horrible.
I never saw anyone with that.
No. Well, I think we have to talk about the new earpods then.
Yes, those would be the new headphones that they said they spent 3 years developing. And I think they scanned, what did they say, 600 people's ears or something like that?
Something like that.
I wonder if there's a page about them.
Yes, there is. It's in the show notes.
Okay. But, they're supposed to have much better sound and also be more comfortable. They tested it with, I think, people who had wet ears, but they also have some airflow for better bass, too, which sounds promising.
So they do look very bizarre. And apparently there isn't a page dedicated to them, but there is a link on a page on the Apple website that claims to take you to learn more, but doesn't. So they're very odd shape. They don't look like normal headphones. But when you look at them, there's a lot of holes in them. So there's a hole on the front, like a normal headphone, but also holes in the side.
Yeah, there's a video about it. There's an EarPods video. There's some description on it on the iPhone design page. There's 2 small slits towards the bottom of the headphone where the old gray rubberized loop used to be, and I think that's for intake for a bass tube or something like that. And then you have your main ports that go into your ear for, I think they were saying, your mid-range, something like that, or most of the sound.
So, do we know how much these cost alone? I think, hopefully not too much.
I want to say $30.
Okay, that's reasonable. So these also have an integrated mic somewhere along the line, right?
Yes.
That's a good deal.
Have the remote and mic similar to the last headphones that they have.
Yeah, I remember years and years ago, I like how I keep coming back to this, when I was going to buy an iPod Touch, it was that 3rd generation, the one without the camera. Well, fine, if it doesn't have a camera, it must at least have a mic in it, right? Nope. So you had to buy the $59 headphones with mic. You just couldn't win that 3rd generation. And then the 4th generation came out and I got one.
Yeah, and for at least the first iPhone, they had the headphones with the mic but no buttons.
Right.
And I think they had ones with buttons and without buttons for a while, and that just messed things up, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So I think that concludes, for the most part, the large parts of the announcement itself. There was some stuff that came out afterwards. So Phil Schiller did an interview with All Things D and Ina Fried, I guess, and he talked about why the iPhone has a new connector, but not NFC and wireless charging. So on the wireless charging part, he basically said that everybody has access to USB at this point, and you can do it with a computer, you can do it with a wall outlet, you can do it on an airplane sometimes, and wireless charging you'd have to hook it up to a wall, or some other power source anyway, so it wouldn't really be that much better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I've never been a huge, wireless charging sounds nice, but it's never one of those things like, oh, I need to have that. It's just a nice thing to say you have on a device, I think.
So I bought an HP touchpad last year, and one of the things that it can do is wireless charging, but only if you spend an additional $50 to get the case that you need to put it in, and an additional $60 to get the pad that you would put it on to wirelessly charge.
So that would basically double the price of the touchpad, at least the final price that they had.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it'd be like, I don't know, $230 instead of $99. So when it's not really wireless either, because if you picked it up, like, you were holding it while it was charging, well, it wouldn't be charging then anymore. So wireless charging really isn't that good of an idea.
Yeah, it's not quite there.
And so Phil Schiller also commented on NFC, because everybody expected, or by everybody I mean the rumors expected NFC to be integrated, so that would be, payment without, needing a credit card and stuff. So the reason they didn't do NFC is Passbook does the kinds of things customers need today, and it's compatible with existing merchant payment systems. So I think that's a fair thing to say. I don't see the need for NFC.
Yeah, with NFC, you need to roll out new hardware to any place that needs to support it, and I don't think something like that's going to happen. And you can, because an example is like credit cards in the U.S. versus all around the world. All around the world, they have they have chips in it. You just stick it in, you type in your PIN number, or I think you don't even need to type in a PIN. You just stick the chip in, where in the U.S. you have to swipe and type in a PIN. They don't have little chips that are connected to.
Right. And so I don't like the idea of NFC. It for most implementations that I've seen kind of make it too easy to buy things. I like buying things to be somewhat difficult so that I can have multiple decisions to make before somebody just makes me pay them.
Yes.
And NFC it doesn't really matter to me, because if I'm leaving the house, I would have to have my ID anyway, so then why not take my credit card? I don't know. Like, we don't have a unified ID system anyway, so I think it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and if someone steals your phone, I think someone would probably steal a phone over a credit card.
Right.
At least in today.
Yeah.
And also with hacking and things, I think having it on a phone would be, especially the iPhone, because of jailbreaking, I'm sure someone would figure out how to hack it at some point.
Oh, definitely. And so the final thing Phil Schiller said was basically that they needed the new Lightning connector because they wanted to make the phone even thinner. And this, he also goes on to say that this will be the new connector for many years to come. And so I wonder about that. So the existing 30-pin connector, I think that came out in 2003, or at least was finalized in its new current form in 2003. So what is that, like 9 years or so?
Yeah, because they had the FireWire. I think it was. I'm assuming it was also 30-pin, but USB 30-pin. Yeah.
So I wonder about that because they can't really make any of the next line of products any thinner. So what are they going to do to it? So that's just a weird little thing that I wondered. And I wonder if it'll last another 9 years or not.
I kind of doubt it. I think they should have spent a little more and made it USB 3, because now they're pushing out USB 3 on all of their new Macs. And
the reason I don't think it's USB 3, which I think is a fair reason, the reason they're pushing out USB 3 on the new Macs is because Ivy Bridge has integrated USB 3 controllers, and putting USB 3 controllers, which are huge, standalone in an iPhone or an iPod Touch, or especially an iPod Nano or smaller, would be prohibitively difficult because they're just so big.
That's true.
So I think that might be a reason, and I think it probably wouldn't be hard in the future to silently switch to USB 3.
Well, USB 3 has, I think it's a 9-pin connection.
I think they can hack it.
Yeah, they might be able to. I'm not sure. A 2.5 maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure they can. I'm sure they can do something to it to go on further. And also, I think they're also doing USB 2 now, because so many people who have iPods and iPhones also have PCs, but not like new PCs, legacy, horrible, old PCs with USB 2 from, like 2004. So yeah. I think that's also a big reason about it.
Yeah.
So let's see, Verizon. So Verizon, right after the event today, said that they will not be charging additional charges for FaceTime over 3G or 4G. So if you want to use FaceTime, you can do that on Verizon.
Yes, and I want to say AT&T said that they would not charge for FaceTime if you had a shared data plan.
That
but
is
if
correct.
you didn't, you would have to pay an additional. Or, no, you had to switch to shared.
Yes, you had to
get it
switch.
active. So
the reason Verizon has to, they have to let you use FaceTime because there was a court ruling recently that essentially made them open all apps on the App Store up to sale, not only on the iPhone but also on Android. And they also couldn't block certain services on that 700 megahertz spectrum. So that was a court decision that we can approve of. That's good.
So that's specific to Verizon?
Yes, it's only Verizon. Unfortunately, AT&T uses different bandwidths, and so
They argued that FaceTime was an app.
right.
So they kind of sidestepped.
So the AT&T argument goes something like this: if an app is pre-bundled on the phone, they can do whatever they want to it. They can throttle it. They can limit you. They can charge you extra for it if it's pre-packaged on the phone. Now, if Apple really wanted to get out of it, they could provide FaceTime as a standalone download, and then AT&T theoretically would have to revise their terms of service to just turn it off again. But something like that.
I wonder if any jailbreak. I jailbreak my iPhone, so I wonder if there will ever be any tweak that someone makes that will bypass AT&T's limitation without having AT&T detect it.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing. I wonder how AT&T detects that.
Because I know with tethering, the packets that have the data in them are different when they're just to the phone and when they're tethered to another computer. So
that's interesting.
I'm curious about how that goes out. I'm sure someone will enable it, and then AT&T might block it or threaten to charge users.
Oh, I'm sure they will. So also after the event, AT&T said that if you're one of those few and far between now lucky people to have an unlimited data plan still, well, you can keep your unlimited data plan.
Yes.
Wow.
I guess that's good news for them.
Yeah, the 20 people who still somehow survive on the AT&T network with that somehow haven't been kicked off yet. It's amazing. Yeah. So let's see. During the event, I believe we were told that there were 400 million iOS devices sold to date, 350 million iPods sold to date, and 84 million iPads sold.
It's a lot of devices.
That is a lot of devices. Now, just to put that into perspective, just this week, earlier this week, on Monday, I think, Google released some numbers. Google told everyone that 500 million Android devices have been activated since whenever. So, Apple includes, three big product lines. So an iPod Touch, which is small, an iPhone, which is huge, and an iPad, which is in between that somewhere. And Android, encompasses thousands of different phones. But the weird thing about that is sold versus activated. See, I don't know how that works. They don't make that distinction. So
I wonder if Google's counting people who returned their phones after a week or not.
Right, and also there's been some talk about how activations work. Like if you have a phone and you brick it, and then you you reset your phone. You do a factory restore.
Yeah,
it would have to reactivate with the service. So does that count again? So that's a weird thing too.
Yeah, and it puts it into perspective. Up until now, Apple has released, I believe it's 11 different iOS devices. You have 3 iPads, 5 iPhones, now 6, and then 4 iPod Touches, and now 5. But so 11 up until now, and that's 400 million devices. Well, that's including iPads. So 400 million for 11 devices versus maybe 500 million or less for thousands of devices.
Right, exactly. So that's kind of an interesting statistic.
Yeah.
And so also I have news that on September 30th, Ping is finally going to die.
Woo. I remember I signed up on the day.
Yep, I did too.
And I believe I signed up when Facebook was still connected to it, because Facebook was connected for 3 or 4 hours before they jumped out.
That's right. And it was really weird too, because it was there and then it was just gone.
Yeah. And there wasn't. I don't think Apple released anything official.
Nope, there was no official statement ever.
But I follow some people on there. I check in probably every few months and then ignore it again.
Well, if you have anything of value, it'll be going away, and the only thing that I think will be kept are shared playlists, which will be converted into some iMix format and then given back to you later.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think they've had user playlists available before Ping too.
Yeah, pretty sure they did. So overall, how was this event among the events you've seen?
I think this was definitely one of the better events. I think, much more excited because I was planning on getting the new iPhone 5 no matter how it came out. But I think the iPhone 4S event was a bit much hype and not too much returned.
Definitely.
But yeah, I think the 4-inch screen is going to be very nice, along with the A6. The new camera features, and then 4G is going to be great. And then iPod Touch has several new features, and I think I'm really excited about the new iPod Nano, despite the rounded icons.
So do you get 4G or LTE out there in Morris?
Nope, I get 3G. I have not seen any more than 4 bars at any one time. I often will have, let's see, sitting in the library on the 3rd floor right now, I have 2 bars.
Oh.
But there's Wi-Fi everywhere, so I'm okay without that. And I don't think AT&T has LTE in the Twin Cities yet. I know they are working very hard on putting that. I think they're going to have it later this year or early next year.
Yeah, AT&T is going to take their sweet time if they can. Yeah, I thought this event was actually much better than some of the more recent events. I like hardware events more than I like software events because I actually get to see products that actually are possible to use.
Yeah.
So while everybody loves WWDC, I preferred this event to that. Let's see, what other events have there been? This event was interesting that it didn't really unleash a hugely new software feature. So last year with the 4S event, they revealed Siri, even though the iOS 5 betas had been out for weeks. Nobody knew a concrete knew that Siri was coming out.
People knew that there was something called Assistant. That's Apple's code name for it, and of course people knew that they acquired Siri.
Yeah.
So I think there were rumors that there was going to be something possibly called Siri or Assistant, and then I think it turned out much better than any of the rumors had projected.
Definitely. And it's also interesting that Apple took this combined approach. So last year they did the iPod Touches first, I believe, and then did the iPhone. This year they did the iPhone and then the iPod Touches. So it's kind of a mix up there too. What else did they do different? Oh, they released an updated product. That's what they did this year.
Wait, which product?
All of them.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So last year they didn't really change much of anything. They added new software to the iPod Nano. They added white to the iPod Touch, and they added a new camera and Siri to the iPhone 4S.
Yeah,
so,
I feel like last year was a very underwhelming year with devices, but this year they had the Retina display MacBook Pro, which I absolutely love, and then the iPhone 5 and the new iPod Touch and Nano. I think it's a lot of new devices, which really makes this year good for Apple.
Yes, definitely. Well, I think this is good. When do you think the next Apple event will be?
I feel like they will be releasing new Macs this fall sometime for the iMac and maybe even a Mac Pro. It's been 2.5 years. I don't know if they'll do an event. If they have radical changes, they probably will, similar to the unibody MacBooks in October of 2008.
So the last late non-iPhone event was, I believe, in 2010 with the redesigned MacBook Air and the early unveiling of Mountain Lion, or just not regular Lion. So they might do something like that again, but it seems to me like it's almost just too early to do whatever comes after Mountain Lion.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Because with Mountain Lion, they just kind of silently pushed it out to developers in February, was it?
Yep, maybe? February, yep.
And that was something they hadn't done before. So I wonder if they'll have 10.9 be coming out this summer or if they'll wait another year.
I think they're trying to do this yearly schedule, but I think eventually they'll get tired of it and they might relax that a little bit. But we'll see.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't become like Chrome and Firefox and you update every 6 weeks.
Yeah, that would be very odd for an operating system.
Yeah, they're going to have to think of more cats or start switching over to OS 11.
Oh no, that would just be a drastic push. Well, this is a great event. Thank you for coming on and talking about it.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So where can we find you on the internet?
I have 2 Twitters. I have theman4789 for everything not related to tech, and then I have tech4789, which is everything related to tech. So you can find me there on Twitter. I don't have a website or anything, so...
I'll put your Twitters in the show notes.
All right.
Yep. Well, that sounds good. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right, you too.